How do you define business design today, and why is it becoming such a critical capability for organizations navigating disruption?
Well, I think business design is integral to dealing with disruption. This is about, at the end of the day, adapting your strategic choices to the capabilities you need and what type of organizational makeup you have to put together, particularly around operating model. So if you don't do that right, you're not going to be able to execute in your strategy.
Now, you've overseen some large-scale transformation programs across different industries. What patterns have you observed that separate successful transformations from ones that stall or even fail?
Yeah, well, the first thing is clarity of objectives. Many times, transformations become kind of a buzzword of just doing things differently instead of actually focusing on what is your objective function, what are you really trying to optimize. And by that, then we can actually apply the other lesson, which is really focusing on continuous business adoption, if you will, of the different things that are doing. Everybody would call it change management, we call it adoption, but it's really about people changing their behaviors towards what we're trying to optimize.
I mean, I'm thinking of the sort of AI transformations going on at the moment. Is it more of the same, or is that fundamentally different?
I think I wouldn't call it more of the same. You can never say more of the same with AI and generative AI because we don't really know where we know where this started, we don't know where it's going to end. Yeah. But certainly it's about a change in the way, it's a disruption, it's changing what we do, and certainly actually having clarity about what you're using AI for and how you're applying it in a way that actually sticks in the organization is really important.
And do you find that organizations have that clarity? It feels like sprinting into the fog.
Yes.
Was an expression that I heard.
Yeah.
I mean, that suggests that perhaps we know we need to move fast, but we don't really know where we're going with it.
The question about AI is, we've seen a lot of people testing it and nibbling in it with the famous use cases. Let me see what it can do for me. I think we've passed that. I think right now it's really about really understanding which pieces of your organization you want to enable with AI and what is it for. What is the final business result you want, and not just experiment, but really start to apply it at scale.
And do you find organizations are able to do that, or is there still some hesitation?
Not really yet, right? I think what we see is a lot of people are still very tentative about where they want to do it. Now, at the end of the day, this is a large capital decision you make, and like big capital decisions, you have to actually go through and understand what you want to do. But it's going to be a portfolio, right? We're going to have different pieces around a portfolio of late, mature things that you can actually apply, some more efficiency moves. At the same time, there's the opportunity of, I'm going to call them innovation moves, and moves in which you can speed certain things you couldn't do before in a much better way.
Is it possible to get an example of some of those?
Well, for example, when you talk about efficiency, let's talk about back office and let's talk about finance, right? I mean, in that space, there's a series of opportunities of applying not only AI, but agents themselves to kind of substitute labor for an agent. Now, if you go to innovation, for example, in the pharma space, right, the ability to actually put AI towards research in a way that you didn't before is going to speed the ability to get to solutions that you didn't before. So that's, for me, are the typical examples in which you see the extremes, an efficiency move and an effectiveness move, if you will.
How can regenerative business models, those that restore and renew rather than simply extract, reshape the way organizations think about growth and long-term value creation?
So regeneration for me is a broad word, right? I think it applies very well to the topics around sustainability and how we can actually create a regenerative space to actually continue to grow by actually not exhausting the resources we have. But I think more broadly, it's also about how do we adapt to an ever-changing environment, right? Ever-changing world in which speed is so much faster, clock speed today is so much faster than it was before. And you have to build an organization that is able to continuously adapt to that. And for me, regeneration is about that. Now, regeneration with a purpose, right? I think having an objective towards you going is really important. If not, you're just changing for the sake of changing, which is not really very effective.
Regeneration applies not just new business models, but also new forms of leadership. How do you see regenerative principles influencing the way leaders design organizations, mobilize talent, and balance performance with what you were just talking about with purpose?
Layered question. There's a lot there, so I'm going to try to unpack it. First, I think leaders I'm always of the belief that leaders have to be acting leaders, right? Leaders that actually are there. not sitting away, putting some, fancy vision and then expecting the organization to do it. So for me, the principles of regeneration apply very much to leadership, about how you are continuously engaging with the organization about where do you want the organization to go and why we're going where we're going. It goes back to the purpose thing. In terms of the organization itself, you cannot build rigid organizations, right? You're going to have to build organizations that allow for some wiggle room, if you will, of actually how to adapt to continuously changing environments.
Okay, and the human side of this.
Yes.
Obviously we're all doubling down on the technology.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? How do you keep the human, but how do you manage the human?
Well, the human is central to this, right? I mean, in our business at Deloitte, we have a lot of assets and a lot of different tools and methods, but it's really about the human being at the center of what we do, right? And actually having a human that is enabled by AI in the right way, is really going to be important, right? So the ability that us as humans have to really leverage the technology in the right way. And AI is a new technology. It changes different things, and it's a big disruption, don't get me wrong. But we've had other disruptions in the past, right? And we have adapted to those disruptions, incorporating that clearly into what we do and how we do it.
Okay. And from your early career at World Bank to leadership roles at Monitor Group and now Deloitte, what leadership lessons have you seen, practiced, and the ones that have stayed with you? What would you pull out?
Yeah, well, I joke a little bit that a good leader for me is a student athlete. It's like you have to study and you have to be there, right? And so I'm very much a believer of being a present leader. I think the leaders that are present, that are constantly there, that are reinforcing the message, that are there when things are bad, not only there when things are good, is really the difference in my whole career and what I've seen in the dozens of clients I've worked over my career, right? So I think it's really important now in this time to remind our leaders that they have to lean in, right? It's not about letting things percolate and happen. It's about the responsibility they have to provide the vision, to provide the guidance, and to provide the pause, if you will, to sometimes just breathe and kind of figure things out as they happen, not trying to rush towards solutions that sometimes may not be the right ones.
And applying that sort of in the mirror, let's talk about the future of consulting, because obviously we're in this brave new world. How do you see the role of particularly strategy consultants evolving in an era of AI, digital transformation, and really a more complex mesh of stakeholder expectations?
Well, you mentioned three things that I'm going to pick on that in that phrase because they're really interesting. First of all, one of my favorite authors, Aldous Huxley, you just mentioned there with Brave New World. The guy got it 100 years ago, and it's a little crazy. The second thing, if I knew the answer to the question, I'll probably be sitting on a beach right now. That will be an island that would be mine. So I don't know the answer because we're all trying to figure out. But I think we do know certain things. And what we do know is that we have an opportunity to reinvent ourselves as a practice, not only consulting, which is more broadly, and there's a lot of things there, but certainly as a strategy consultant. Strategy consultant, at the end of the day, it's about someone that can bring the right level of dialogue with the C-suite, understand the portfolio implications of the choices you make, and is able to really architect enterprise transformations that actually drive what we need to do. That's what we try to do at Monitor Deloitte. That's what we push for. Being part of the Deloitte family allows us to do things that really can help in speed up transformations and make them stick, right, in a way that in other situations is harder. Right, but I do think that we are first, and I say that to the practice every single day, we have to disrupt ourselves before somebody disrupts us.
Do you think this is a game changer or a whole new game? Is it a disruptive technology or is it a paradigm change for business?
Wow. I am going to say, just because I've been through too many changes over my career, that I think is a disruptor, not a paradigm change, right? Because I do think that at the center of what we do still is a human being. And the human being is still going to be having the opportunity to interact with others to actually enable change in a nice way. Now, the future, who knows, right? We may end up in a Terminator world that the machines dominate us. Hope it doesn't go that way. And I don't believe in that. I'm a glass half full kind of guy. I do think that we have a tremendous opportunity of using AI to really transform things that we did either inefficiently or too similar to others in a differentiated way. Because the interesting thing about best practices and about AI now, I hear people, I can go online and do ChatGPT and I have a perfect strategy for me. I don't need a strategy consultant. Well, you have a perfect average, mediocre comparison of what other people are doing. As far as I know, that is not a differentiated strategy. That's just a Me Too strategy. Normally, Me Too strategies fail.
Now, I know Deloitte takes a lot of interest in the sort of next generation of leadership as well.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for emerging leaders? What capabilities do you believe will be most essential for this next generation of leaders if they're going to thrive in the next 10 years?
Well, the funny thing about it is it's analog for me, right? I mean, the AI, the digitization, the speed is all there. Embrace it, learn it, understand how to use it. You don't need to do it, but you understand how to use it. But there's two things for me. One is embrace change. Embrace, don't run away from change. Change is going to chase you really, really damn quickly if you don't embrace it. And second, the funny thing about our business, and I think executives in general, is be effective in the way you communicate, right? And people are very ineffective in the way they communicate. It's surprisingly to see that in scenarios, and I think we underinvest in that. A little bit of the side of what are the important things? Clarity is critical to what you do. And I tell that to our practitioners all the time.
Surely by now we realize how important communication is, and clarity and encouragement and all of those things. But what does that actually look like?
Well, the first thing is leaders sometimes do not communicate very clearly. I mean, it's like a very simple principle. Just let's go back to the classic pyramid principle of communication. First of all, what are you trying to portray? And what are you asking your people to do? Sometimes it gets lost in translation. It's like too many frameworks, too many ifs and buts, too many flowers, and I just want to know what you really want me to do.
And is the problem there, because I've encountered both, is the problem there the communication or the lack of clarity?
Well, it's both. Because, the funny thing is, I always try to keep our teams and our clients clear about what they're trying to do. I go back to something I mentioned a little earlier, which I'm going to call it in econometrics term an objective function. What are you trying to optimize? What are you trying to move? What are your main goals or objectives that you want your organization to be focused on? And that applies to everything, not only commercial organizations, it applies to governments, it applies to NGOs, anything, right? I mean, what are we really trying? Because if not, the organization is going to go in circles. You're going to create a lot of vapor, a lot of heat, but not a lot of motion, not of an energy, right? So that is critical, and it's surprising to me, by the way, in the biggest organizations. I've had the privilege to work in the biggest organizations on the planet. They still don't do it very well, right? And there's a lot of interpretation. Interpretation leads to inefficiency.
Final question.
Yeah.
As you say, you've seen a lot of organizations up close.
Yeah.
What is the one message that you would want a young emerging leader to take away from this conversation? What is the one message you would like to pass down to the next generation?
There's a world of opportunities. So the future is about the opportunities that are there. Don't get distracted with the barriers that exist, because I think the world we can do a lot with what we have in front of us. And we can solve a lot of the problems we haven't been able to solve by actually applying some of the things we have in front of us right now.
Francisco, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having me, Des.